Okay, so you want to look 5 years younger for 5 years longer. You want to do it without fillers.
You're going to love this video today. In fact, I'm going to interview some plastic surgeons and I'm going to talk about the one thing they fear most and how much facelifts actually cost and what they're losing out on when you partake in this type of a treatment that prevents you from having a facelift. And in fact, they give you the narrative that you can't have a facelift if you get these. And is that true? And what are they trying to protect? Now, facelifts are great. Sometimes you just need a facelift to get the result that you want. Or there's too much sag, so non-invasive or minimally invasive aesthetics don't work. But you're going to find out this one element that can make you look 5 to 10 years younger. And guess what? It even lasts for 5 years plus. So it's long lasting. I'll go through costs. Stay tuned today, and we have some amazing scenery for you to enjoy.
You can use the natural process of your own body to stimulate collagen, thicken your dermis, mimic bone, and help your fat pads. All the things that make us look youthful, and you boost it with this.
So how much does a facelift really cost?
Some of our colleagues, I mean, in this neck of the woods, a facelift will run you $30,000 to $75,000, right?
I tell them that all
so
the time.
That's
I find it hard to believe.
That is absolutely true.
It's very cheap.
Yeah. So that's a big ticket item for us. So we don't want you taking away our facelifts.
Okay, fillers versus Sculptra. This is an absolutely important video because if I could keep your facial bone, your fat pads, and your dermal thickness along with your collagen, how it is today for the next 10 years, I would have a win, you would have a win, and that's the difference between fillers and biostimulators. But a lot of people are scared of them. A lot of people don't use them. I want to go through the differences today so you get your best look. And guess what? They're less expensive. I'll explain why today. So fillers, known as hyaluronic acid fillers, not the same as what you put on your face as skincare. Those are both hyaluronic acid, but fillers are cross-linked, typically bacterial cross-linked, to give them stability so that they maintain in your face without going away quickly.
So the HA serums, the hyaluronic acid serums that you place on the top of your skin, to be clear, those are not cross-linked, they're not sterile, they're not meant to be injected. It's a key point because so many people botch their face trying to inject topicals that are meant to be topical. They're not cross-linked, they won't maintain, they're not sterile, they're actually dangerous. Be mindful of that point.
Sculptra, on the other hand, is not a gel. It's a powder, and that powder is reconstituted or mixed with a liquid, and the powder goes into your face. Now that sounds a little bit weird. Why would a powder go in there, and what are the benefits of that? Well, if you mix something or dilute it with water, we're blanketing the whole face. So we're making your face overall look younger from the jawline through to the forehead. So it's an overall rejuvenating look. Now we call it a biostimulator. What does that mean? Bio means life, stimulator means so life or living, and stimulation. So we use your body with biostimulators to rebuild its own collagen, goodness, youth, glow, and skin tightening. So if you take a filler, let's go through the differences, and after each difference, I'll tell you about a myth and we'll bust that myth. So fillers are instant. So that's a benefit of the filler, is that they're instant, and people want instant and they like that. If you take a biostimulator, let's take Sculptra, that product builds collagen over time by using your own body to stimulate its collagen. Type 1 and 3 collagen are the two that we're most concerned with, but that takes a little bit of time. It does depend on your machinery, but I use it in people from their late 20s right up. I've used it in someone at the age of 93. So the body has the machinery to build collagen and to restore youth and glow. And in that liquid is a small molecule called PLLA, poly-L-lactic acid. We're focusing on that biostimulator today. There are other ones such as what I call Plasmafil, or your own blood draw products like platelet-rich fibrin. Another one would be Radius, which is calcium hydroxyl apatite. That's also a biostimulator, meaning it uses your own body to rebuild it's collagen. But today, let's stick with Sculptra. I do have other videos on Radius. So we have that. One's instant, one takes a little bit of time to work. With Sculptra per se, you're going to start to see results typically at around 3 to 7 weeks. And it takes at least 2 sessions where we repeat it at around 6 weeks, and then it builds up. It does all of its work by 6 months. Let's go through a myth. A common one is you cannot get a facelift if you've had Sculptra. Untrue. I have a complete video on Beverly Hills plastic surgeons who do Sculptra, also do facelifts.
Why would there be people out there in your world, I'm going to put this on these guys, their world, because the rest of us live in other places. Why would those people be saying, don't get fillers, don't get all these procedures, you need a facelift, it might be the only thing that's work? Why would that be? Because in the injectable world, we like combinations, we like everything. Why would that be in your world?
So that's a really excellent question. So of course, you only see bad work or filled faces or overfilled faces, but for every one overfilled face you see, 9 beautifully filled faces are walking around that one overfilled face. So you don't see that, right?
Is there any politics behind it? I'm getting to the nitty gritty because that's what the people want to know. Because here, the reality is, in a lot of our worlds, is 99% of people, I did the calculation, 0.06% of people in the country get a facelift. Okay, well, guess what? 99% of people want everything else. And so there's a lot of competition. But is it political, or is it just, is it like people are having fun with each other by creating some FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt? Or what do you think?
To answer that question, I think, unfortunately, I think there is a little bit of politics in there. A lot of the surgeons think different than non-surgeons, and we're kind of conceited, obviously. That's our nature by definition.
I didn't say that.
That's our nature by definition. So we think we're better, but that's not the point. I think the politics have got into it, but for those of us who are friendly, such like in LAMCO right here, that we have all kinds of surgeons, non-surgeons, nurses, PAs, nurse practitioners, we all work together to improve the patient care. At the end of the day, Dr. Rojani, Dr. Karimi, we are here to make the patients better as a whole. Then that would give us a better name. And politics aside, we're making you better.
I want to say a couple things. So yes, to answer your questions, absolutely political. You are talking to 2 unicorn facial plastic surgeons here, because we truly believe in the surgical and non-surgical holistic approach to aesthetics. Some of our colleagues, in this neck of the woods, a facelift will run you $30,000 to $75,000, right?
I tell them that all
so
the time.
That's
find it hard to believe.
That is absolutely true.
It's very cheap.
yeah. So that's a big ticket item for us. So we don't want you taking away our facelifts.
Look at the kind of suit Rajani wears, and then look at the clothes these guys have. They're wearing these are $4,000 suits. And this is like Gap. That's the difference.
I find that hard to believe.
Either 6 months after, 5 years after, 10 years after getting Sculptra, not a problem. It's an absolute myth. But one of the reasons that myth is there is because Sculptra can be a facelift killer, meaning there are many people who get Sculptra and then don't need a facelift afterwards. So providers or plastic surgeons lose money to the Sculptra market. And especially some parts of the country, you're going to hear people, they're very bombastic about their facelifts, and they, of course, if you get a facelift, you typically, or you hopefully, you don't want another one for at least 10 to 15 years. So there's a lot of competition there. So Sculptra is a danger to their business. Difference number 2, fillers are dissolvable with Hylenex hyaluronidase. Now I have whole videos on that they can harm your face fat. Many plastic surgeons believe that they can harm your SMAS, or the most important layer that provides support in your face. But they are dissolvable, so you can get rid of them. Sculptra, on the other hand, there is no reverser. What does that say to you? You need to find an expert to inject it. Now, here's the thing with Sculptra. Because it goes in as a water in a powder that's microscopic, there's really no need ever to dissolve it. And overfilling is very, very difficult to do. A lot of people don't have the money to overfill. But where you might need to reverse it is if someone put it in the wrong place, under an eye, in the lip, just above the lip, where there isn't much fat. You remember what I said? It keeps your fat pads healthy. Where there's not much fat, you could get a nodule or bump. But any expert who injects it rarely ever sees a bump, which is a nodule, or a granuloma. Two different things. Those are extremely rare, but when they happen, they make the news. What else is like that? BBLs, people who die of Brazilian butt lifts with fat transfer. It's not that common anymore with the new techniques, but when one happens, you hear about it. So one person gets it, it scares a million. That's the story with nodules, but you cannot dissolve Sculptra. Another myth, scar tissue. You're going to hear that Sculptra creates scar tissue. Now this is a complex subject because we're depositing collagen, and it's studied to deposit type 1 and particularly type 3 collagen. Scar tissue is irregular deposition of collagen. You get infiltration of fibroblasts, of all the factors, neutrophils, all the factors in the body that want to fight things off. A little bit of inflammation.
So does Sculptra really cause scar tissue? And what is scar tissue? Maybe you want it in your face. Let's find out. Excellent. Okay, and we have Dr. David Sadat, also Beverly Hills, double board certified facial plastic surgeon. So you can give me kickback all you want, but these guys are putting faces together, taking them apart all day long. Let's see what his response is to this.
Thanks for the question. So I think the scar tissue that we're talking about, for some odd reason, everybody thinks scar tissue is negative. Oftentimes in filling and thread lifting and using PLLA Sculptra, we're using this inflammatory response to get the result we want. So you want this scar tissue to work for you, to lift, to add volume, to make the skin texture better. So I don't think the scar tissue is bad as we talk. So it's a negative effect that people think about, but it's not. Actually, this scar tissue is positive. Second thing I want to mention is that the type of facelift that we do nowadays is called deep plane facelift, which it sounds kind of weird, but basically what it means is like we're going underneath the muscle and lifting, and oftentimes thread lifting and all these other fillers are done on top of the muscle over the SMAS, an area that we call SMAS, fat underneath the skin. So we're kind of below the scar tissue, therefore making the lifting not so difficult. So the real question is it difficult to do facelift in someone who's had thread lifting? Maybe tiny little bit, but it can be easily done.
Now, what causes the most scar tissue of all the procedures we do? It's a facelift. So if you're worried about a facelift versus Sculptra for getting scar tissue, that's a crazy thought, because you're getting scars by nature and you're lifting. When you're getting a facelift, of course, you're lifting the skin off, you're removing skin, and you're allowing scar tissue to form back. That scar tissue is one of the reasons why that lower neck region looks tight after a facelift, is you get some scarring of the tissue up in the what we call the submentum, or the area below the jaw. So understand, if you don't want scar tissue, you would never get a facelift. Sculptra is not your worry. Now, another difference is Sculptra leaves the body. So the Sculptra molecule, 50 to 60 microns in size. So if you drop a pen on a piece of paper, you'll just see a little flick of the pen. You can just see it with your naked eye. That is about 50 to 60 microns. That's the size of a Sculptra molecule. That molecule, the longest it's been seen in the body is about 21 to 22 months, somewhere in there. Fillers, of course, have been seen 10, 15, 20 years later. So fillers stay in your body. Sculptra leaves your body. It goes in, builds your collagen, and leaves. It's one of the benefits. Another difference is that Sculptra builds collagen. It's proven. This is studied. This is science. It builds collagen. Fillers, although slightly they can by stretch of the tissue. But to get stretch, you have to put a fair amount in. We knew this from forearm studies back in the day. But fillers do not overall build collagen. Sculptra and biostimulators build collagen. Next is skin tightening. Biostimulators, particularly Sculptra, is a very good skin tightener. So if you put it in here in the preauricular area, you get tightening along the jawline. That's now FDA approved. So they can say that because there's studies on this. Fillers do not tighten the skin. They tighten by volumizing, which is the problem. People overfill to get tightening, and that creates the disaster, especially in the lower face. You never want to overfill to get tightening. Fillers do not tighten. The next point is natural. If you want to look natural, you can't do a lot of fillers for most people because they create too much volume. You get that bloated face. Fillers draw water in. Sculptra does not attract water. So the most natural look is when you address the full face with Sculptra, avoiding the danger areas, but understanding that you're dressing the full face. Whoever's injecting it, they need to have a great consult and understand facial aging, fat pads, bones, dermal thickness. Because if you don't understand the angles and the beauty angles, you will take someone from beauty angles to not so beauty angles because you're addressing the whole face. So it does take experience, but Sculptra by far is a much more natural look than getting fillers. So especially over the age of 40, biostimulators and Sculptra is much more advisable than going the filler route for me in my practice. And certainly one of the best biostimulators is from platelet-rich fibrin gel or plasma fill along with Sculptra. Now let's talk cost, because a lot of people believe that Sculptra is more expensive than fillers. Sometimes if someone has a hollow face or a lot of loose skin, they might need 5, 6, 7 vials of Sculptra, and that could run around $3,000 to $6,000 depending what part of the country or world you're in. Here's the difference. Sculptra's been shown to last 2 to 5 years. That's studied. So full face treatment that lasts 2 to 5 years. And when you need it again, let's say you come in at 4 or 5 years, you want it again, you need much less than the first time because a lot of that collagen has stayed and you look more rejuvenated. With fillers, of course, you hear people getting lip fillers, every 8 months, 9 months, that's 1 to 2 mLs. So easily over the course of a few years, you might get 5 to 10 vials of filler, which is about the same price as a vial of Sculptra now. So you can see, in fact, Sculptra is less expensive, looks more natural, lasts longer, and it goes in, does its work, and leaves the body. There's a lot of benefits to Sculptra over fillers. No, I use both in practice. There's a way to use both judiciously to combine them, of course, to get the best results. But you have to know there are differences between fillers and Sculptra. And you have to understand you're going to get nice, beautiful, natural results with Sculptra, whereas fillers, you go get them done and boom, you're ready for the weekend. You can take that selfie picture. Now you're going to want to watch this video on facial fat pads and how you can maintain them, and one down here on full face plasma sculpt, how you combine the power of biostimulators, platelet-rich fibrin, and Sculptra. Keep your skin and body beautiful, healthy, vibrant.